Good morning, everybody. My name is Elena Popp, and I am the executive director of the Eviction Defense Network. Buenos días a todos. Mi nombre es Elena Popp y soy la directora de la Red de Defensa de Desalojos. We are a private nonprofit in Los Angeles County that has been at the forefront of stopping displacement and gentrification in LA County since 2003. Somos una organización sin fines de lucro que ha estado al frente de parar el desplazamiento y el alberguzamiento de nuestra comunidad, o lo que se le dice gentrificación de nuestra comunidad desde el 2003. The 5 most stressful life events anyone can go through are death of a loved one, divorce, having to move, and that includes voluntary displacement, major illness or injury, and job loss. De las cosas más estresantes que les puede pasar es que se muere un ser querido cercano, divorcio, tener que mudarse, incluso cuando uno se está mudando voluntariamente, enfermedad seria y perder trabajo. And if you put the involuntary nature of an eviction here, it probably moves it up as one of the most stressful life experiences, even higher than 3. Y si uno toma en consideración que cuando hay un desalojo eso es involuntario, tiene que ser mucho más estresante que simple y sencillamente la decisión de mudarse. Costs of housing have gone up since 2000 tremendously. So this is rents going up right here, and this is housing purchase prices right here, but median income has not. Los ingresos no han subido, creating a huge gap that creates housing instability. And we were already dealing with that before the pandemic. And then the pandemic in LA County alone put at least 365 million households at risk of displacement. Y en el condado de Los Ángeles, la pandemia puso a lo menos 365 hogares en peligro de ser desplazados, and figures go as high as 500,000. Y unos estudios dicen que 500,000. But we put protections in place, pero luchamos para protecciones. Starting in March of 2020, we fought for protections. Empezando en el marzo del 2020, luchamos para protecciones, and we got them, y los logramos. They weren't everything we wanted, no eran todo lo que queríamos, but they were enough to stop an eviction tsunami, pero fueron suficientes para parar un tsunami de desalojos. Or the analogy that I like to use is a patient on the ground, o lo que a mí me gusta usar es un paciente que lo encontró el gobernador tirado en el piso. The governor found this patient lying on the ground, bleeding out, estaba sangrando. And he told the press, I'm going to make a moratorium to stop this bleeding. Y le dijo a la prensa, voy a hacer una moratoria para parar toda esta sangre, but he did not, pero no lo hizo. There are no moratoria anywhere in the state of California. No hay ninguna moratoria. What he did is gave power to local government, les dio poder a gobiernos locales to pass laws, para que pasaran leyes to stop evictions, para parar desalojos. And it was like the equivalent of a doctor calling the nurse, el doctor llamando a la enfermera. Nurse, do something, haga algo to stop this bleeding, para parar esta sangre. And local government did a series of, some of them did Band-Aids, some of them did bandages. Algunos pusieron curitas y algunos pusieron bandas más fuertes, but it wasn't enough, no era suficiente. And so on April 7th of 2020, el 7 de abril del 2020, our state courts, the judicial council, nuestras cortes, put a tourniquet on the wound, pusieron un tourniquet en la herida. They passed something called Rule 1. Pasaron algo que se llama la regla 1. Landlords could file evictions. Los dueños podían archivar desalojos, but the court would not give a summons. Pero la corte no daba la citación judicial. And I'm going to show you a picture of a summons in a minute. Les voy a mandar una citación judicial en un minuto. The summons gives the court power over the tenant. La citación judicial es el papel que le da a la corte poder sobre el inquilino. Without a summons, the case can't really move forward. Sin una citación judicial, el caso no puede proceder. So, as a result, the number of eviction filings in LA County went from 3,381 a month, which was the figure before the pandemic, to 389 a month, a 389, a reduction of almost 90%, very effective, reducción de casi 90%, muy efectivo. But landlords, seeing that they were blocked from evicting their tenants in court, los dueños viendo que estaban bloqueados de desalojar sus inquilinos en corte, started doing illegal stuff. Empezaron a hacer cosas ilegales. Harassment, hostigamiento, illegal utility shutoffs, which are a crime. Apagar los servicios de agua, luz, internet, gas, que es un crimen hacer eso, but they were doing it even though it's a crime, lo hacían aunque es un crimen, and illegal lockouts, bloqueos ilegales. Again, a crime, otra vez crimen. So that went up. Harassment went up by 352%, hostigamiento incrementó por 352%, and illegal lockouts and illegal utility terminations by 75%. Y bloqueos ilegales y apagar los servicios incrementó 75%. So we've been busy. Hemos estado súper ocupados stopping those things, parando esos actos ilegales, while at the same time representing the people that are in court. Al mismo tiempo representando las personas en corte, but 388 cases was very manageable with the resources that we had. 388 casos al mes se pueden manejar con los recursos que teníamos. In October of 2020, the laws change. En octubre del 2020, las reglas cambian. And the tourniquet that the Judicial Council put on that wound, ese tourniquet que pusieron esa herida, was loosened by the governor. Lo aflojó el gobernador. Why that happened has to do with very complicated rules about whose job it is to make laws and whose job it is to enforce laws. So the Judicial Council had gotten sued twice for making laws. Rule 1 is making a law versus enforcing a law. Básicamente las demandas contra las cortes era, no están interpretando las leyes, están haciendo leyes. And so the Judicial Council withdrew Rule 1, quitaron la regla 1, and the governor gave us something weaker. Y el gobernador nos dio algo más débil. And if you want to know these changes, it's at the 1 o'clock webinar or the General Renters' Rights webinar that's recorded on YouTube. So, si quieren saber exactamente los cambios, tienen que ver el video que se llama Derechos de Inquilinos en General o venir al webinario de la UNA. So that weaker law resulted in eviction filings going up to about 998 a month. Con esa ley más débil, aumentaron los desalojos legales en corte a más o menos 900, no más o menos, eran 900, un promedio de 998 por mes. Then in October of 2021, en octubre del 2021, the governor ripped off the tourniquet, nos quitó el tourniquet de plano, and eviction filings went to about 1,502, something like that. Más o menos 1,500 desalojos, okay? So evictions are being filed. Los desalojos se están archivando. Tenants often will ignore all the notices that they're getting. Los inquilinos ignoran las notificaciones, not you guys. Some of you are here very early in the process and I congratulate you. No la gente que está aquí, están aquí temprano en el proceso, but people will ignore the notices. There's a moratorium. I don't have to do anything about this. Hay una moratoria, no tengo que hacer nada sobre eso. And then they're wondering why the sheriff is knocking at their door at 6:30 in the morning and kicking them out in their pajamas. Y luego no entienden por qué el alguacil los está echando a las 6:30 de la mañana en sus pijamas. You have to be attentive. Tienen que ser atentos. You have to be educated. Se tienen que educar. You have to join organizations that are protecting tenants and making the law stronger. Se necesitan involucrar en organizaciones que están organizando inquilinos y haciendo las leyes más fuertes. And when you get a notice, you have to get yourselves to a webinar where we have one-on-one consultations or questions and answers afterwards so that we can figure out what to do with that notice. Y cualquier notificación que reciben, necesitan venir a un webinar o a una consulta para ver qué hacer con cada notificación, okay? So these laws created a safety net. Estas leyes crearon como una red de apoyo, but it looks more like this, pero es más como esta. Because we're still in the middle of a health crisis. Todavía estamos en medio de una crisis de salud. We're still in the middle of an economic crisis, una crisis económica. There are nearly 500,000 households unable to pay rent, although that's changing with the rental assistance. Casi medio millón de viviendas no pudieron pagar renta, pero ahora tenemos la ayuda de rental assistance. Hostigamiento, bloqueos ilegales, y las leyes son una gran confusión, and the laws are huge confusion. You have to watch our webinars 10 times before you even start to understand how the laws apply to you. Necesitan ver los webinars 10 veces antes de que empiecen a entender cómo las leyes aplican a cada uno. Because the reason I asked you to put down your address is, depending on where you live, different laws apply. Depende en dónde viven, diferentes leyes aplican. They also keep expiring and then renewing, and so people are all confused about what laws are in effect. Se vencen y luego se renuevan. For instance, that very, very weak law that we got in October of 2021 is supposed to end in a couple of days. Esa ley muy débil a nivel estatal que no logramos en octubre del 21 supuestamente se vence en unos días, but just this week, the state legislature and the governor are finally talking about extending it to June 31st. Esta semana, ahorita estamos negociando una extensión hasta el 31 de junio. This is a very stressful way for tenants to live. Es una manera súper estresante para los inquilinos. You don't understand the law. The laws keep changing. You feel powerless. No entienden las leyes. Cambian a cada minuto. Y se sienten sin poder. And people have been living like this. Those that are COVID impacted for 2 years, los que están impactados por COVID, 2 años es lo que han vivido así. And people who were already in trouble because their rents were too high, even before the pandemic, have lived with this kind of stress for many, many years. La gente que gana poco y vive en lugares con precios altos han vivido con este estrés por años y años. You can't live like that, people. No pueden vivir ahí. You have to live in a place where you feel confident and empowered. Necesitan vivir en un lugar donde se tienen confianza y se sienten empoderados. And the way to do that is to join either a tenants union or an organization like the Alliance of Californians for Community Empowerment, or both. Se necesitan involucrar en su sindicato de inquilinos y en una organización estatal como la Alianza what is it in English? Es ACCE, la Alianza de Californianos para el Empoderamiento de la Comunidad. When people get involved, they feel more powerful. Cuando se involucran, se sienten más poderosos. You need to join us on Saturdays. Necesitan estar aquí los sábados. You need to join us at other webinars, también en otros webinarios, porque then you are surrounded by people like you, and that gives you power, porque están rodeados de personas como ustedes y les da poder. And I am very, very proud of our Friday support group. Y soy muy orgulloso de nuestro grupo de los viernes. And Kevin will put that link in the chat. And for those of you that are watching on YouTube, the slides have the links. Kevin va a poner eso en el chat ahorita. Y para los que están en YouTube, los enlaces están en la misma pantallita. every Friday at 6 o'clock, you can get together for a discussion led by people who came into this process frightened, nervous, anxious, some of them to the point of being so thoroughly annoying in how scared they were. Gente que vino a este proceso con miedo, intimidados, que algunos hasta me volvían loca que con el miedo que tenían, porque like I could not get through to them, no podía lograr que me entendieran que hay protecciones. I couldn't get them to understand that there are protections. And so you really have no reason to be as anxious as you are. No tienen la razón o motivo de tener la ansiedad que tienen, porque sí hay protecciones once you understand how the laws protect you, ya que entienden cómo les protegen las leyes, and how organizations like the Tenants Union, ACE, and my organization, and the Stay Housed Coalition, and the Right to Counsel Coalition, como todas estas leyes y organizaciones como los sindicatos de inquilinos y ACE, y también las coaliciones, como mi agencia es parte de varias coaliciones. Once you understand the protections, then you can be empowered. And there are tenants who have gone through this already and come out really well. Hay inquilinos, ya les hemos resuelto su situación, and they come to this webinar on Fridays to help you get there. Y vienen a esos webinarios para ayudarles a ustedes a sentirse empoderados, okay? And then, but then I'm going to scare you a little bit again. Les voy a dar un poquito de miedo again. There are not enough legal resources to help everyone. No hay suficientes recursos legales para ayudar a todos. But if you do what we ask you to do in this webinar, you will be one of these people sitting squarely in the safety net. Si siguen las instrucciones para ser uno de estos dos que están muy planamente en la red, instead of these guys that are falling through the cracks, en vez de estas que están aquí cayéndose por el cracks. We staff a lockout hotline. I'm going to give you this example as someone who's going to fall through the cracks because too self-centered, too thinks she's the only one that has this problem, won't follow the instructions. Tuve una conversación en el lockout hotline con una mujer esta semana que va a caer aquí. ¿Por qué? Porque se sienta, ella piensa que es la única que tiene este problema y quiere atención especial y no quiere venir a los webinars. She doesn't want to come to webinars. She just wants me to call her and tell her what, give her a consultation on a call. And I'm not going to do that. Y no lo voy a hacer. Why? Because you're taking your time to come and learn and be empowered and educate yourself. And she wants to take up an hour of my time on things she could learn here. Porque ustedes están tomando su tiempo para venir y educarse y empoderarse y luego hacer sus preguntas, and then you're going to get to do your one-on-one. Y ella simple y sencillamente quiere que invierta una hora explicándole lo que se explica en los webinars. And so the conversation was, you have to call me back. And I'm like, no, you need to come to a webinar, to the point where I was just sending her the same text over and over. I think she got the impression that it was an auto reply and she stopped texting, but I haven't seen her since. I haven't seen her at a webinar. I haven't seen her, so se está rehusando a recibir la ayuda que tenemos disponibles. The webinars are not a punishment, no son un castigo. They are a gift, son un don. And people who attend regularly are doing really, really well in their cases. Las personas que asisten y asisten regularmente estamos haciendo milagros con esos casos, okay? So please take advantage, okay? As I said, I'm with the Eviction Defense Network. Soy parte de la red de defensa de desalojo. And we are part of something called the Right to Counsel Coalition, which started in 2018. Somos parte de una coalición que se llama la Coalición al Derecho a un Abogado, que se formó en el 2018. And pre-pandemic, we had already been fighting for a law that says that if you're going to get evicted, you have to have a lawyer. Estábamos luchando para una ley que si se archiva un caso de desalojo, tienen el derecho a un abogado. Very much the way that you have a right to a lawyer if your freedom is being threatened or your life is being threatened because you committed a crime. Parecido al concepto de que si les vamos a quitar su libertad o ponerlos a muerte porque cometieron un crimen, tienen el derecho a un abogado. Same concept, mismo concepto. When the pandemic hit, the city gave this coalition money to start this program called Stay Housed LA. Cuando llegó la pandemia, el condado nos dio dinero para empezar este programa para proveer servicios. We have a website that will explain your rights. Tenemos un sitio web que explica sus derechos. We have this workshop and many, many, many other workshops. Tenemos este taller y muchos más. And I invite you to go to others. Les invito a ir a otros. In the slides, you'll see all the ones that we sponsor. En la pantalla van a ver todos los talleres que nosotros patrocinamos, but there are also others. También hay otros. Please go to them. Favor, vayan a esos también. The more information you get, the better. La más información que obtienen, lo mejor. The more powerful you will feel. Lo más empoderados que se van a sentir. The better decisions you will make. Las mejores decisiones que van a hacer. If you go to another workshop of the Stay House workshop, si van a otra, and you hear something different from our recordings and our workshops, algo diferente de lo que yo les estoy diciendo en nuestras grabaciones, en nuestros talleres, do not contradict the presenter. No contradijan el presentador. Take a note of the date of the time of the workshop. Anoten el día y tiempo. Take a note of the presenter. Anoten el nombre del presentador and take a note of what they're saying. Y tomen notas de lo que están diciendo. Our message in all these workshops is supposed to be the same. Nuestro mensaje en todos estos talleres deben de ser lo mismo. But sometimes there's difference of opinions between lawyers. A veces hay diferencias en opiniones entre abogados. So if you're hearing something different, I want to know what that is. Yo quiero saber qué es lo que es. So either I can change my presentation para yo cambiar mi opinión, or talk to them to come to an agreement about what we should be saying, o llegar a un acuerdo con esa persona, or correct them if they are wrong, o corregirlos si están en lo mal. But don't argue with a presenter there. No argumente con un presentador ahí, okay? So you can also get legal help. También pueden conseguir ayuda legal. And what I'm going to say now is different from what I have said in the past. Lo que voy a decir ahora es diferente de lo que he dicho en el pasado. We're no longer taking people at edn.la. Ya no estamos aceptando gente en edn.la if you are already in court, si ya están en corte. Why? Because we have a waiting list of about 35 cases that we have not been able to open because we have too many open cases. Tenemos una lista de más o menos 35 casos que no hemos podido abrir porque tenemos demasiados casos abiertos. And what I mean by that is lawyers have a responsibility to only take the number of cases that they can manage and do a good job with. Los abogados tienen una responsabilidad de aceptar nada más la cantidad de casos que pueden manejar y hacer buen trabajo. Now, to tell you the truth, we're very good at stretching that envelope. Somos muy buenos a agrandecer ese sobrecito and to take extra cases more than other agencies can take y aceptar más casos que otras agencias aceptan, except when it comes to the end of the process and we don't have enough lawyers to do the trials, and then we get in trouble, excepto al final del proceso, cuando no tenemos suficientes abogados. So what happens is, once everything is done to prepare your case, ya que todo se ha hecho para preparar el caso, we go to a court hearing after going to many court hearings, después de muchas audiencias, where the other side is ready, el otro lado está listo, they have a judge ready, tienen un juez disponible, and all of the paperwork is already all done, y todo el papeleo está listo. If those three things come together and we don't have a lawyer, si esas tres cosas están listas, ellos están listos, el juez está listo, los papeles están listos, they have a lawyer available, the paperwork is all done, and there's a judge available, we get fined for not having a lawyer available. Nos dan una multa por no tener un abogado disponible. And if we get fined too much, we can lose our licenses. Si hay muchas multas, podemos perder nuestras licencias for taking too many cases, a raíces de haber tomado demasiados casos. So right now we are not opening new cases because we have too many open. Ahorita no estamos abriendo casos porque tenemos demasiados casos abiertos. So what we are doing is guiding people through the webinars and through my office hours. Estamos guiando a la gente por medio de los webinarios y por medio de mis office hours. And Kevin will put those up again in the chat. Kevin va a poner esa información otra vez en el chat. And for those of you watching on YouTube, you can go to the screens that have that information. Los que están viendo en YouTube, hay slides que tienen esa información. We are also giving clients referrals to the private attorneys. También estamos dando a clientes referencias a abogados privados. Often clients will tell me, oh, no, I can't afford to pay someone $1,500 to represent me. Me dicen, no puedo pagar $1,500 para que me representen. You know, what you can't afford is to lose your case, have an eviction on your record, owe all the rent to the landlord, and find housing in this economy. Lo que en realidad no pueden hacer, perder el caso, deber toda la renta al dueño, tener un desalojo en su récord y buscar vivienda en esta economía. All of that is way more than $1,500. Todo eso es mucho más que $1,500. So find the money. If we ultimately cannot represent you, and if you cannot kind of deal with the stress of being represented through the webinars, si no pueden manejar lo que les estamos diciendo, que venir a los webinarios, hacemos los papeles poco a poquito, then you need to come up with that money to hire a private attorney. Necesitan identificar el dinero para encontrar un abogado privado. Okay? So, and I will work this out with you individually. Vamos a manejar esto individualmente. Now, working this out individually means you also have to have patience. Manejar esto individualmente quiere decir que tienen que tener paciencias. What we do is we do the presentation, we do questions and answers, and if there's time, we do one-on-one. Hacemos la presentación, preguntas y respuestas, y si tenemos tiempo, hacemos el uno a uno. If we don't have time for the one-on-one, you have to come to another webinar for a one-on-one. Si no hay tiempo, tienen que regresar a otro, or to my office hours, or a mis office hours. People get impatient with office hours because sometimes I start at 6 and don't see the last person until 11. Empezamos a 6 y la última persona le empiezo a las 11. And it's because we do it first come, first serve. Lo hacemos según van llegando. And you can't sign up any earlier than 5 minutes before. No pueden registrarse más temprano que 5 minutos antes. So you signed up 4 minutes before and you're number 26. Se apuntaron 6 minutos después y son número 26. Well, you're going to know you're number 26 because on the waiting room chat, I tell you the order that I am seeing people. En el chat del waiting room, les digo la orden en que estamos viendo a gente. It takes about 20 minutes per person. Se tarda más o menos 20 minutos por persona. Please do not walk away from your computer, turn on the TV, and expect that it's going to work out perfectly because you did the math. Por favor, no apaguen la computadora y se van a ver la televisión o hacer los trastes pensando, pues soy el número 15, va a ser a X horas. You cannot calculate because people drop off. No pueden calcular cuánto tiempo exactamente porque la gente abandona, se van, and so it moves faster, corre más rápido. Or sometimes I only take 5 minutes with someone. A veces son 5 minutos con alguien. And so I waste a lot of time getting people to connect. Desperdicio mucho tiempo. Oh, I'm sorry, I thought I was number 16, and so I went to run an errand. You can't do that, right? Oh, dispense, era el 16, así es que fue a hacer algo. Don't do that because then it really is a waste of time. Es una pérdida de tiempo. Be very efficient with office hours. Sean eficientes. And in office hours, we developed an individual plan for you. Desarrollamos un plan individual, okay? Office hours are also for people who are not yet in court. Eso también es el servicio para las personas que todavía no están en corte. In an ideal world, the moment your landlord gives you a dirty look, you should have a lawyer so we can slap that dirty look right out of their face, right? En un mundo ideal, si el dueño les da un mal ojo, deben de tener un abogado para quitarles el mal ojo, okay? But we don't live in an ideal world. No vivimos en un mundo ideal. And so if you're not in court, we are counseling you through the webinars and the office hours. Si no están todavía en corte, la consejería es por medio de los webinars y office hours. And right now, if you have an eviction in court, ahorita, si tienen un desalojo en corte, we are opening the cases. Estamos abriendo los casos, but for investigation, brief service, and negotiation only. Para investigación, servicio breve y negociación solamente. We are not promising that we will have a lawyer go to court with you. No estamos prometiendo que un abogado va a ir a corte con ustedes. We are helping people do all the paperwork that is necessary for a lawyer to go to court with you. Estamos haciendo todo el papeleo que se tiene que hacer para poder abrir el caso si tenemos a alguien disponible cuando nos toque ir a juicio. That way, all the paperwork is done, and if we have a lawyer available when all those three factors, there's a judge available, the other side is ready, the paperwork is done, then if we have someone available, we will open the case. Si los tres factores están ya, hay un juez disponible, el abogado del otro lado está disponible y tenemos todos los papeles listos. Si también tenemos un abogado nosotros disponibles, vamos a juicio, ¿ok? It's the best that we can do for you right now. Es lo mejor que podemos hacer ahorita. In the meantime, there are two statewide organizations, ACE and Tenants Together. Hay dos organizaciones al nivel estatal, ACE y Tenants Together. These are both great organizations, son requete buenas organizaciones. Eden works more closely with ACE. Nosotros trabajamos más cercanamente con ACE. They have a local chapter in LA that is very powerful. Tienen un local que es muy poderoso. ACE members who are being harassed, the landlord gets a taste of their own medicine. Miembros de ACE que reciben hostigamiento, el dueño recibe una probadita de su propia medicina. They will protest against that landlord, they will do actions, they will do stuff. Hacen cosas para que el dueño aprenda que no puede maltratar a su inquilino. I really urge you to join ACE. And the best way to do that is come to a Tuesday or a Thursday webinar. La mejor manera de hacerse miembros es venir a un webinario del martes o jueves and just say, I want to join ACE. Y digan que se quieren ser miembros de ACE. Lupita González, the lead organizer, is a mama bear in protecting her members. La que es la organizadora principal es una mamá oso en proteger sus miembros. And then there's the tenants unions. Y también hay los sindicatos de inquilinos. The LA Tenants Union, for anybody living in LA City, el sindicato de inquilinos de Los Ángeles para cualquier persona viviendo en la ciudad de Los Ángeles, you just do LATU, L-A-T-U, and you get to their website. You go to where it says locals, van a la página que dice locales, and you'll figure out how to become a member. Y ahí se pueden involucrar. And then if you live outside of the city of LA, these are the tenant unions in the northeast part of the county. Estos son los sindicatos en la parte noreste del condado. Burbank, Glendale, Pasadena, and Pomona. Okay? So please join and don't go there just because you need help. No vayan ahí nada más porque necesitan ayuda. Go there because you want to be part of something that is bigger than you. Vayan porque quieren ser parte de algo que es más grande que ustedes. Go there because you want to bring your, in Spanish we say grain of sand, to tip the scale in favor of tenants. Vengan y aporten su granito de arena para balancear esa escala a favor de inquilinos. And go there because that's where you, look at these people. Don't you want to look like this? Vean esta gente, no se quieren, mira qué contentos están. Look how happy they are. This is what we look like when we win. Aquí es como somos, nos vemos cuando ganamos. And here's what we look like before we win. because we've got determination. Y aquí es como nos vemos antes de ganar porque tenemos la determinación para ganar. So this is the slide for how to come to the webinars. Esta es la pantalla de cómo asistir en los webinars. Every Tuesday at 6 o'clock, there's a webinar, and then I come on at 8 for questions and answers, and if necessary, one-on-ones. Cada martes a las 6, webinar. Yo vengo a las 8 para preguntas y respuestas, y luego hay uno a uno si es necesario. This is in Spanish. The webinar is in Spanish. The Q&A and the one-on-ones is in whatever language you need. El webinar en español y el Q&A, las preguntas y respuestas y las consultas uno a uno en el idioma que necesitan. Thursday at 5 o'clock, jueves a las 5. There is a Q&A. Hay un Q&A in English and Spanish, en inglés y en español. There is no one-on-one on Thursdays. No hay consultas individuales. People need to come to office hours for that. Necesitan venir aquí abajo para la consulta. Oh man, this is already still wrong. Okay. I'm going to fix this slide right now in the middle of this recording. Then this is it's that one that you are at right now. Este es el webinar que están ahorita, sábado a las 9, Saturdays at 9. And then office hours are now only on, and I am going to fix this right now. They are only Mondays and Wednesdays. Nada más son lunes y, actually, I'm not going to fix it right now because I don't know how. But it's now only Mondays and Wednesdays, starting at 6, empezando a las 6. Because on Fridays, we're doing the support group led by tenants. Los viernes estamos haciendo el grupo de apoyo, okay? And the webinars are all recorded. Todos los webinars están grabados. And so these are links to the recordings. Esos son los enlaces a las grabaciones. And this slide also needs to be fixed to add the Spanish one. También necesito componer esta pantalla para añadir la que está en español. You know, people tell me, how many webinars do I have to go to? You have to go to as many as you need to go to until you can teach the class. Tienen que ir a los que se necesitan tener para poder enseñar la clase. When you can teach the class, then you should come to help us teach the class. Cuando ya pueden enseñar la clase, deben de venir para ayudarnos a enseñar la clase. And there are some people that come and they're, you know, people are answering questions in the chat and asking questions in the chat. And those leaders that have been here often are answering the questions in the chat. And then I look at the chat to make sure that all the answers are correct. Por ejemplo, hay gente que viene y contestan las preguntas en el chat y luego yo reviso para ver que las respuestas están correctas. That is a helpful thing. It's helpful to you because then you know you got it right. Eso les ayuda a ustedes porque luego saben que ya entienden. And it's helpful to other people. Y es una ayuda para otras personas. So this is the slide that says how to get help from us. I'm going to leave it here because I hope to eventually go to a place where we are opening cases. Lo voy a dejar aquí porque eventualmente queremos llegar a un lugar donde estamos abriendo casos. But for now, you are better off going to stayhousedla.org to submit your request for services, because then you get on the radar of all 11 legal services programs, porque así están en el radar de todos los 11 programas como nosotros. Somos 11 en total. We're 11 programs that provide legal assistance and 13 organizations like ACE that do tenants' rights organizing in the program. Somos 11 servicios legales y 13 organizaciones que organizan a inquilinos como ACE. And so when you sign up at Stay Housed LA, you're sort of getting the support of the whole coalition. If the legal services program that's supposed to be helping you does not contact you, si el programa que supuestamente fueron asignados no les contacta, then there's a number for you to call. Hay un número para llamar. You can also come back to a a one-on-one, pueden regresar a una consulta de uno a uno, either after a webinar or my office hours, o después de un webinario o mis office hours, and I will go back and send an email to that agency to remind them that you're waiting to hear from them. Voy y entro y le mando un correo electrónico a esa agencia para recordarles que están esperando para que les ayuden, okay? Now, I'm going to briefly talk about the eviction process. Brevemente voy a hablar del proceso de desalojo. Evictions start with notices. Desalojos empiezan con notificaciones. It can be any number of days. Puede ser cualquier cantidad de días. 3, 30, 60, 90, 120, or anything else. Puede ser cualquier cantidad de días. And these are examples. Y esos son ejemplos. People often complain. It doesn't have an official stamp. It doesn't need an official stamp. Se queja la gente. No tiene una estampa oficial. No necesita tener una estampa oficial. They complain. It looks like they got it off the internet. Well, that's where they get them. Parece que nada más lo bajaron del internet. Pues ahí es de donde los bajan. No está firmado. It's not signed. It doesn't have to be signed. It has to have the person's name, but it doesn't have to be signed. If you don't do what that notice says within those number of days, si no hacen lo que dice la nota en esa cantidad de días, legally, the only thing the landlord can do is file a summons and complaint in court. Si no hacen lo que dice la nota en la cantidad de días, la única cosa que puede hacer el dueño es archivar una demanda de desalojo con una citación judicial. Now, when I say to you, that notice is invalid, that notice is wrong, that notice has a technical problem with it. Cuando les digo, esa nota es inválida, está incorrecta, tiene una defensa técnica, what I mean is the landlord's probably going to file this lawsuit, but in the course of this, you're going to win. El dueño va a archivar esa demanda y en el transcurso van a ganar. As a rule, Eden does not tell landlords that their notices are defective. Eden no le dice a los dueños que las notificaciones son defectuosas, because then they're just going to correct it, give you a new one, and you're going to end up in court with a notice that doesn't have a defense, porque lo van a corregir, les van a dar una nueva y luego van a empezar este caso con una notificación que ya nos falta la defensa. So we fight and then use the defects in the notice to either get you the best deal that possible or to win. Nosotros nada más que archiven la demanda, nosotros luchamos y luego por medio de una negociación o por medio de ganar, les logramos un mejor resultado. There are exceptions to that if I think that letting the landlord know will stop the whole case and you won't get a new notice. Si analizamos y vemos que decirle que hay un error al dueño va a parar todo el caso, entonces sí hacemos, le decimos al dueño. But that's very rare. Es muy raro. Okay. Now, the court is going to send you a courtesy notice. La corte les va a mandar una nota de cortesía. They're going to send you at least 2 by mail, a lo menos 2 por correo. One is addressed to everyone who is actually being sued in the complaint. Una a todos los que están siendo demandados. And one is going to be sent to all unnamed occupants. Y lo otro a cualquier otra persona que vive ahí. Meaning anyone else that lives there that we don't know about. Es decir, a cualquier otra persona que está viviendo ahí que no sabemos su nombre. That will either come before you get the summons and complaint packet or after. Esa nota puede venir antes o después. The landlord has to give you a packet. El dueño les tiene que dar un paquete. It's, between 5 and I had one that was 75 pages, which is a lot. They attached a lot of evidence. Es un paquete bastante grueso. So it's a thick packet that has the summons, and I'm going to show you a copy of it, and the complaint, y la queja, and other papers, y otros papeles. Okay? When you get the summons and complaint, you have 5 working days to answer. Cuando ya reciben esto, tienen 5 días hábiles para contestar. And we recommend answering. Nosotros recomendamos contestar. There are motions that you can do here. Hay peticiones que pueden hacer aquí. A motion to quash if they didn't hand it to you in your hand. Una petición para que forzarlos a que se los den en la mano. A motion to strike or a demur if there are errors. Una motion, petición para corregir errores que existen. The problem with those motions is that they just delay the inevitable. Nada más son, dilatan lo que va a pasar de todos modos, and they take time for us to do. Y nos cuestan tiempo. So we can help more people if we skip this process. Podemos ayudar a más gente si nos brincamos esta parte del proceso. So we generally do not do these motions. En general, no hacemos estas peticiones, and that's true of all 11 of the legal services programs. Y eso es para todos los 11 programas. Okay? So you file an answer, archivan una respuesta, and then we do something called discovery. Hacemos algo que se llama el descubrimiento. We ask them questions, they ask us questions, we demand all their proof against you, they demand all our proof against them, and that way everybody knows what the case is about. No, les hacemos preguntas en escrito, ellos nos hacen preguntas en escrito, también demandamos que intercambiar todas las evidencias para que todo el mundo sepa exactamente de qué se trata el caso. Eventually, they will ask for a trial. Eventualmente, van a pedir una audiencia. And then we're going to get a notice of that trial. Y vamos a recibir una nota de esa audiencia. We will demand a jury. Vamos a demandar un jurado for a lot of reasons. Por muchas razones. We find we do better if the people that are deciding your fate are people who can relate to you. And jurors tend to be tenants. Judges tend to not be. Pensamos que debe de ser decidido su caso por alguien que puede entender lo que están pasando, y la mayor parte de jurados sí son inquilinos o han sido inquilinos, y jueces en realidad no. Most judges, if they were ever a tenant, it was when mommy and daddy were paying the rent when they were in college. La mayor parte de los jueces, si fueron inquilinos, era cuando estaban en la universidad y mamá y papá estaban pagando la renta. So they don't have a way to relate to you. No pueden entender lo que están pasando. Whereas most jurors have either been tenants or are tenants. La mayor parte de los jurados o han sido inquilinos o son inquilinos. So we do better. Hacemos mejor. But it's not 100%. No es 100%. I just had a jury that where we lost. Acabo de hacer un caso en un frente de un jurado donde perdimos, and I'm going to go over the 16 factors to consider. Voy a analizar los 16 factores que deben de considerar. But there, I think one juror had ever been a tenant. Uno había sido inquilino. Most of them were still living at home with mom and dad, or went, like, were homeowners for so long ago that they had no way to relate to a tenant. La mayor parte era toda viviendo en casa con mamá y papá, o dueños de casa por años y años. And a lot of them were landlords, y muchos ya también eran dueños con inquilinos. But the main reason we lost that case, there's 16 factors. La razón mayor que perdimos ese caso is that the client did not listen to me. La clienta no me hacía caso. We had a very clear technical defense. Tenemos una defensa técnica muy clara. If we had waived all of our other defenses, the jury would have just heard about that technical defense. El jurado hubiera oído sobre esa defensa técnica solamente, and I am 99.9% sure that we would have won. 99.9% segura que hubiéramos ganado. Instead, they heard about the whole history of the tenancy. Oyeron sobre todo el historial del inquilinato. And honestly, both the landlord and the tenant were very obnoxious people. La dueña y la inquilina eran igual de mala nota. And ultimately, the jury liked the landlord just a little bit better than the tenant. Les cayó un poquito mejor la dueña que el inquilino, and we lost, y perdimos. You have to listen to your lawyer. Necesitan hacerle caso a su abogado. We know more than you do about all of the nuances. Sabemos más que ustedes sobre todas las nuances. People get freaked out because the notices say bench trial or non-jury trial, even if we've preserved a jury. It's a glitch with the computer program. If we've preserved a jury, you get a jury trial. A veces los inquilinos se preocupan porque dice caso en frente de juez en vez de jurado en la notificación, aunque hemos preservado el derecho a un jurado, pero es un problema nada más con el sistema de computación de la corte. Under the law, the trial is supposed to take place within 20 days. Bajo la ley, el juicio tiene que se tiene que hacer dentro de 20 días. But in reality, cases have been continued as much as pre-COVID, they were getting continued for about 8 months in, continuance. Antes de COVID, 8 meses de continuaciones, because there's only 33 trial judges and 49,000 evictions. 33 jueces, 49,000 desalojos pre-COVID, antes de COVID. During COVID, the continuances have mainly been because there's a spike, so no jury trials. That goes down, so jury trials. And then there's a spike and no jury trials. And during COVID ha sido porque cuando hay un incremento de casos de COVID, no podemos tener un caso en frente de un jurado. No jury trials during spikes because you can't socially distance well enough. No podemos hacerlo porque no se puede hacer así es que, so it opens up and it closes down. It opens up and it closes down. A very stressful way for the lawyers to live, because cases get continued, and then they get bunched up, and then we have too many of them all of a sudden, and not enough lawyers to do them, and so it's been a bit of a mess. Muy estresante para los abogados porque se continúan, y de repente, aquí tenemos 30 jueces listos para ser jurados, y no tenemos suficientes abogados para hacer esos casos al mismo tiempo. But that's part of the dilemma that we're dealing with. Es parte del problema que tenemos. Eventually, if you win, you stay. Si ganan, se quedan. And if you lose, you get kicked out. Y si pierden, lo sacan. From the date of a judgment to a lockout pre-COVID, 15 to 21 days. De esta fecha, cuando pierden, hasta que venga el sheriff, antes de COVID, 15 a 21 días. It's taking a little longer during COVID, un poquito más largo durante COVID. But to tell you the truth, I don't have enough examples because we don't lose that many cases. No tengo suficientes ejemplos, pero porque no perdemos muchos casos. But I do know that the few that we've lost, it's been way longer. Los pocos que hemos perdido, mucho más tiempo. Plus, sometimes we go into this box to make motions to get you back over here. A veces entramos a esta caja para hacer peticiones para llegar acá. These are long shots, son no muy fáciles de ganar. If you don't answer, you're going to go directly here. Sheriff kicking you out. Si no responden, van a seguir directamente aquí con el sheriff echándolos. And throughout the process, including after losing, we can negotiate. Durante todo el proceso, incluso después de perder, podemos negociar. And what does that mean? ¿Y qué es lo que quiere decir? Negociar, negotiate. Well, when you first come into the office, we ask you to choose a route, a goal. Cuando entran a la oficina, les pedimos que escojan una ruta. On the left is fight for my unit, fight to stay. Al lado izquierdo, pelear por mi vivienda, pelear para quedarme. To the right, a la derecha, is get me some time to move with enough economic benefit, money, for given rent or money, and a sealed record, and I'll leave. Denme suficiente dinero y suficiente tiempo, renta ahorrada, dinero nuevo y un récord sellado y me voy. So we ask you to choose a route. Les pedimos que escojan una ruta. And then we look at the route to see if it makes sense for your case. Y luego vemos la ruta que han escogido para ver si tiene sentido. And we do that using 16 factors. Consideramos 16 factores en hacer esta decisión. And these are the factors. Estos son los factores. The first factor is the value of the unit. El primer factor es el valor de unidad. What is the rent? How much space do you have? And where is it in the county? ¿Cuánto es la renta? ¿Cuánto espacio tienen? Y Ups, ¿cuánto espacio tienen? Y rent. Oh, y a dónde en el condado está? And where is it in the county? We also look at at this point, we also look at who are you? Vemos quiénes son ustedes. If you tell me we are 9 people in the family, we're living in a 2-bedroom, our total income for the 9 of us is barely enough to pay for this rent controlled unit, then you're not moving, okay? Si me dicen somos 9 en la familia, tenemos 2 recámaras y casi no podemos pagar esta unidad, entonces no hay manera de salirse, because no one's going to rent you a 2-bedroom for 9 people. Nadie les va a alquilar 2 recámaras para 9 personas. Rents for 2 bedrooms have skyrocketed. Rentas para 2 recámaras han escalado. And now for 9 people, you need more like a 3 or a 4 bedroom. So you're going to be paying too much. That's an impossible formula. Van a pagar demasiado. Es un formulario imposible. But if you tell me that you're a single person paying $6,000 a month for a luxury apartment that you used to be able to afford, but you can't afford now, I'm sorry, we need to figure out how to get you out of there. Si son una persona soltera pagando $6,000 por un apartamento que antes podía pagar, pero ya no, entonces vamos a buscar la manera de sacarlo. Those are 2 extreme examples. Most people are somewhere in between. Dos ejemplos extremos. So what is the value of the unit? And then, is the unit protected? Está protegida esa unidad. Right now, almost every unit in the county of Los Angeles is protected by emergency measures. Ahorita casi todas las unidades en el condado están protegidos por las leyes de emergencia. There's state laws, hay leyes estatales, and then there's the county law, la ley del condado, which protects a lot of units, que protege muchas unidades, and then some of the cities have even stronger laws than the county law. Algunas ciudades tienen leyes más fuertes. So we look at what protects you and we decide, hey, that's a lot of protection. I don't think we should be moving you. Esa es mucha protección. No creo que debemos de moverla. But as the protections, like there's in September, October, November, we were starting to negotiate move out deals for people that were protected by laws that were expiring at the end of the year. En septiembre, octubre y noviembre, estábamos negociando leyes para unidades protegidas nada más hasta el fin del año. And then that got extended, so we went back to our position of no one moves till the pandemic is over. Regresamos a nuestra posición de que nadie se mueva hasta que se termine la pandemia. So this keeps changing depending on what protections you have. Esto cambia dependiendo de las protecciones que ustedes tienen. But we also, some of you have protections under local rent stabilization laws or the State Tenant Protection Act. So that also goes into the equation. Algunos también tienen protecciones bajo leyes de estabilización de renta locales o la ley estatal. So we need, people I have a little question. Saying you have a little question is the equivalent of telling your doctor without giving any medical history, hey, my side hurts, I think you need to take out my appendix. Es el equivalente de decirle a un doctor sin darle nada de historial de su historia médica, me duele aquí al lado y quiero que me quites el apéndice. It doesn't work like that. There's no such thing as a little question. We have to get your medical history, meaning your rental history. Necesitamos tener su historial para poder darles un consejo bueno, to be able to give you a good advice. The next thing we look at is, can we win? La próxima cosa es, podemos ganar. And a lot of factors go into that. Muchos factores en eso. Does the law protect you? ¿Les protege la ley? Sí o no? Yes or no? And then if it does, do you have the evidence to prove it? Sí, tienen la evidencia para comprobarlo. So let's say you're in a rent-controlled unit. Supongamos que está en una unidad protegida por control de renta in the city of Los Angeles, en la ciudad de Los Ángeles. And you also have COVID protections that are strong. También protecciones bajo COVID que son fuertes, but you have never gotten a receipt for a single cash payment that you've made to the landlord. Pero nunca han obtenido ni siquiera un recibo por los pagos que hacen en efectivo al dueño. That's a hard case, because how am I going to prove that you're a tenant? ¿Cómo vamos a comprobar que son inquilinos? Okay, so don't pay in cash, always get receipts. Another way for a unit to be protected is if it has a government subsidy. Otra manera para proteger una unidad es un subsidio del gobierno. I'm talking about Section 8, public housing, and tax credit buildings. Sección 8, viviendas públicas, edificios de bajos ingresos. Those come with extra protections. Vienen con protecciones extras. Another way to win, otras maneras de ganar, is the witnesses need to be good. Los testigos tienen que ser buenos testigos. One of the things that I do when I start interviewing people is I try to get them, listen to the difference in these tones. I start off usually with this tone. This is not a natural tone for me. You'll notice as you listen to this presentation that I tend to have a more pressed tone, a more emphatic tone, okay? But this tone can get a little annoying. It is a good tone when I'm trying to make a point, but it's a lot easier to listen to me if I go back to this point, to this tone. Tenants who are talking about their very stressful situations tend to either bark about it or whine about it. Tienen la tendencia o ladrar o a ponerse muy whiny. Both are very unpleasant. Ambos son maneras muy no pleasanteras de expresarte, and the jury and the judge are not going to like it. It also grates on your lawyer's nerves. El jurado y el juez no les van a caer bien, y también es irritante para gente que les está ayudando, que están haciendo, que francamente, I get barked at least 15 times a day. Me ladro un inquilino a lo menos 15 veces al día. I start off the day with patient. By the end of the day, man, I call people on that really fast. Empiezo el día con paciencia y ya al final del día los paro inmediatamente. And I understand that you're barking because you're feeling stressed out. Entiendo que están ladrando porque están estresados, but it doesn't help you in court. No les ayuda en corte. Okay. No les ayuda en corte. Así es que necesitan controlarlo. You have to control it. Okay. And I'm very strict about that. Soy muy estricta. And don't tell me, but I'm stressed out. Well, then that's why you come to Friday, so you can be less stressed out. Venga los viernes para eliminar el estrés, because the dog ate my homework doesn't work in court, porque culpar que el perro se comió la tarea no les ayuda. You're going to be equally homeless. And so my job is to get you to a point where you can make a strong case. Mi tarea es llegarlos a un punto donde pueden hacer un caso fuerte, and you being a good witness is part of that. Ser buen testigo es parte. Because it goes very much to being likable. También tiene que ver con que ser agradable. Then if we do a lot of preparation, hacemos preparación, that gives us leverage and negotiation, nos da palancas en negociación. We also look at the client's finances. Vemos las finanzas del cliente. If you are an undocumented day laborer without any social security getting paid under the table and a common last name, si son indocumentados, los pagan bajo la mesa, no tienen social y tienen un nombre común, then if you lose this case, nothing really bad is going to happen, right? Si pierden este caso, except you're going to get displaced, a la excepción del desplazamiento, there won't be an eviction on your record, you won't owe the money to the landlord, no va a haber desalojo en su record, no van a deber el dinero, it's going to be impossible to collect. Same thing as if your government benefits, si tienen beneficios del gobierno, you'll have the eviction on your record, but they're never going to be able to collect. That gives us leverage in negotiation, nos da una palanca en negociación. Then we have to ask ourselves, what are they offering? What are we risking? ¿Qué están ofreciendo? ¿Qué estamos arriesgando? So I have a case right now where all the factors say fight, except we can't win. Tengo un caso ahorita que todos los factores dicen luchen, pero no podemos ganar. So we were going to fight and then ask for an emergency hardship petition. Íbamos a luchar y si perdemos, una petición de misericordia. And then they offered $75,000 to move, but the rent is $450 for a 2-bedroom, pero la renta es $450 por una de 2 recámaras in a nice neighborhood, en buen vecindario. It's hard to give that up even for $75,000. Es difícil rendirnos ni siquiera por $75,000. And then what happened in this case, I finally looked up what happened with this case because I've been using it as an example for a long time. The landlord screwed up and nobody showed up to the trial. And so the case was dismissed. El dueño cometió un error, nadie vino, ni él ni su abogado al juicio, se canceló. But now they're making a petition to open up the case again. Ahora están haciendo una petición para reabrir el caso. We also have to look at the players. ¿Quiénes son los que están jugando aquí? Who's the judge? Who are the jurors? Who are the lawyers on both sides? Who's the landlord? Who's the tenant? How good are all of those people at winning? And then we go back to can we win? Y luego regresamos a podemos ganar. Those are the factors, and we do this analysis case by case. Hacemos ese análisis caso por caso. This is a summary of the existing laws. This is un sumario de las leyes existentes. You need to come to the 1 o'clock seminar, venir a la de la 1, or Tuesdays at 6 and Thursdays at 5 to get a full explanation of all this, para una explicación llena, completa de todo esto. Or watch the webinars on YouTube, o ver los webinars en YouTube. Bottom line, you need legal support and you need to be part of a group like ACE in order to have success. Necesitan apoyo legal y ser participantes en un grupo como ACE or the Tenants Union para lograr victoria. I'm now going to show you what the papers look like, because people call, I have a 5-day notice. I have no idea what that means. Tengo una nota de 5 días. No tengo ninguna idea lo que es eso. You could have a 5-day notice to pay rent or quit, which is the beginning of the process. Puede ser una nota de 5 días para pagar la renta o salirse, que pasa al principio del proceso. It can be a 5-day summons and complaint, which has a 5-day deadline. Puede ser la queja de desalojo, que tiene un plazo de 5 días. It could be the courtesy notice from the court, which also says that you have 5 days, but really it's not 5 days from when you get it in the mail, it's 5 days when you get it in your hand, when you get this in your hand. No son 5 días de cuando reciben la nota de cortesía de la corte, son 5 días después de que esto está en sus manos. Or it could be the 5-day notice to vacate at the end of the process when the sheriff is about to come out. Puede ser la nota de 5 días al final del proceso cuando viene so I don't need to hear a 5-day notice. No quiero ir, I want to hear, I have a summons and a complaint. Tengo una, oops, I didn't put the complaint, but it looks a lot like this. Tengo una citación judicial con una queja. This is the courtesy notice from the court. Esa es la nota de cortesía de la corte. And this is sometimes comes with the complaint. Esto a veces vienen con la queja. Oh, and here's the complaint. Aquí está la queja. They all look very similar. You have to be able to read. And at the bottom of each of these forms, al fondo, is what it is. Answer, unlawful detainer, which just means eviction. Page 1 of 2. Respuesta de desalojo, página 1 de 2. Complaint, unlawful detainer, page 1 of 4. Queja de desalojo, página 1 de 4. So if I say, take pictures of the complaint, si digo, tomen fotos de la queja, don't send me a picture of this. This is not the complaint. This is the pre-judgment claim. You look at the bottom and you see what I'm asking for and send me that. Ven al fondo, ven lo que estoy pidiendo. Don't send me this. This is an entirely other piece of paper. So you get my drift. You have to get familiar with the names of the papers. Here are the recordings to the presentations. And this is our proving the case, your case sheet. Esa es nuestra hoja para la evidencia que necesitamos. Read through it. Does it apply to you? Start gathering it. Léanlo. ¿Se aplica a ustedes? Empiece a colectar esa información. It is 2 pages, es 2 páginas. And this is our victory depends on you protocols. Eso es nuestros protólogos durante la pandemia. It tells you exactly what we need to do and tips on what happens at trial, tips on testifying. Everybody should be looking for housing. Todos deben de empezar a buscar vivienda. Why? either you'll find something that works for you, o van a encontrar algo que funciona para ustedes, or you are going to something that works for you, or you're going to realize there's no way for you to find a way to move out of here, and it's going to make you fight harder. O van a realizar que no hay manera de salirse de aquí y van a luchar más fuerte. You are trying to avoid this. Están tratando de evitar esto. Once you get this, you have, the sheriff doesn't come on this day. The first day they can come is the day after. No viene el alguacil este día, el primer día que pueden venir es el día siguiente. And usually it takes more than that. It comes with these 3 pages, viene con estas 3 páginas. If you are here, you need to get that to us right away so that we can see if we can help you. And then once the sheriff puts this on the door, theoretically you cannot get back in. En teoría no pueden reentrar, although we did have a case of someone who we think got locked out while we were in court and the sheriff put him back in. Tuvimos un caso, and it's unusual, it's never happened in 45 years to me before. Tuvimos un caso esta semana que logramos el gane en corte para parar el sheriff, pero el sheriff ya lo había echado y luego lo reentraron de nuevo. Okay, so the eviction process again. At this stage, you're coming to office hours. At this stage, we are opening cases, but right now for negotiation and investigation only. En la etapa de la notificación de esta notificación, tienen que venir a webinars. Ya que viene la queja de desalojo, sí abrimos casos, pero a este momento nada más para negociación y preparación. Same with people who are in harassment, illegal lockout, utility terminations, pre-notice, it's the webinars. Tienen que venir a los webinars, a las consultas. Again, we are the Right to Counsel Coalition, and we are here to be of service to you, but you need to also be willing to help yourselves become educated and powerful, because when we fight, we win. Porque cuando luchamos, ganamos. We are trying to form a coalition that involves churches and other organizations to train the members of those, the leaders in institutions, to help their own members in order to deal with the lack of attorneys. But that's a project that is still very much in the works. And with that, we're going to stop recording. Con eso vamos a parar la grabación.